And here's the thing. The arrogance
Whoa, strong out of the gate.
that is required, the intellectual arrogance that is required for you to think that you are taking on billion-dollar companies who have algorithms that know what bottled water you drink, and you are somehow beating them, and you're fleecing them. You're getting an airline ticket, and it doesn't cost you anything. You really are pretty arrogant to think that you're actually winning at this game.
All right, Dave. All right. Let's jump into this. If you pay off your credit card every single month, is there any harm in using credit cards? Well, let's take a look at what Dave Ramsey has to say about that question, and then I'll tell you where I agree with him and where I disagree with him on this issue. I'll also show you where Dave applies his own logic differently in two scenarios and how they actually contradict each other. Hey, while you're here, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel so that you're notified when new videos come out. Thanks for watching. So here's the question from the caller and Dave's response.
The one issue we struggle with is not using credit cards. We use them to pay our utilities, groceries, and other monthly bills, but we never carry a balance.
I do that.
Able to travel for vacations for free using our points.
Points.
What's wrong with doing this if we're not going into more debt? The age-old question, Dave.
Age-old question. It's a really good question.
This topic on the fine print, because it's one of the biggest objections we get here at Ramsey.
It's a good question. Of course you're going to get objections.
They get some free stuff. What's the harm? Right?
What is the harm, Dave? What's the harm?
Bank of America and Chase, what portion of their marketing is working the best? And it is this crap.
I think they do.
Vacations.
Yeah.
Points.
This is the one. This is the one that's got people believing in stupidity still.
All right, stupidity. Strong language from Dave. Not abnormal.
To the true cost of credit card rewards. This is the second fine print episode that we released, and we dug into this with an ex-Capital One insider.
Okay, what did they say?
She said they run 10,000 experiments a year on people to figure out what's going to get them to spend more, to use the points. And one of the biggest ways they do it is through the points. Because you know how the points work. They don't say it's $500. They say you're going to get 128,000 points that you can use to redeem flights that cost $74,000.
I hate that part. I hate that part.
Change every day, and there's blackout dates, and there's restrictions.
Yeah, of course.
And on top of that, the whole 2% cash back. That one is one of my favorites. Because you know what 2% of $1,000 is?
$20. $20.
$20.
$20 to spend 1,000, and that's not a great deal.
So let me get this straight. If you spend $10,000, you get $200.
Ding, ding, ding.
That'll make you rich.
Yeah.
Well, come on. She didn't say she was trying to get rich off a credit card. She said, what's the harm in getting the money back if you're paying the card off? All right. Anyway, let's keep going.
Spend $10,000, get $200. That's a formula for wealth building right there.
Yeah.
She didn't say she was trying to build wealth this way.
Did you people go to grade school?
Whoa, Dave. All right, Dave. Asking if we went to grade school. All right, look, let's start with where I agree. Dave doesn't say it specifically in this video, but he says it all the time, and I completely agree that any and all credit card debt should be paid off ASAP. Carrying a balance on your credit card while making minimum payments, or even making payments above the minimum, is costing you significantly because credit cards have absurdly high interest rates. Yes, credit card debt should be eliminated immediately. Second, I completely agree that credit card points aren't going to be what makes you wealthy. Your behavior and habits with money is what will lead to an increase in your wealth. But the caller didn't say anything about using credit cards to become wealthy. They asked, if I pay the credit card off every single month, what's the harm in using them? Dave never really gave an answer to that question, so I will. The harm is if you don't actually pay it off. If you end up in a situation where you thought you could pay it off, but for whatever reason, you can't. That's more of a risk than a guaranteed harm, though. Another risk is that you might spend more with the credit card than you otherwise would have without it. I certainly think that some people spend more with their card than they would if they were pulling cash out of their pocket. I also know that some people spend more on their credit card with the mindset that they don't have to pay it off fully and that they can make payments to pay it off over time. Now, that's not what this caller was saying, though. They are paying it off fully every month. And if you're using a credit card like that, I highly doubt that you would spend any more on the credit card than you would with a debit card. Both of these are valid concerns considering that they happen frequently. However, there's a simple way to avoid both of these risks, and that is to budget the way that I encourage people to budget, which is actually the same way Dave tells you to budget. If you have an intentional spending plan, also known as a budget, and you have an app to track your spending according to that plan, then you should only be spending on things that you actually have the money for. Then both of these risks are actually minimized in that case. Not completely, but enough to not be afraid of credit cards. Just like driving carefully and wearing a seatbelt doesn't reduce your risk of an accident and injury completely, but it's enough to feel comfortable using your car. I also agree with the comments that they made on how the credit card companies market their products, how they make the value of points confusing, and how they change it frequently. Personally, I'm not a fan of travel rewards. I prefer cash back. They think cash back is dumb too, but we're going to address that part in a minute. It's much harder to determine the true value of the points because you get a certain amount of miles per dollar spent, but then the amount of miles per flight or hotel night varies when you actually go to redeem them. Also, just as they noted, the whole trip isn't free, so you have to spend more money to utilize these points. You also have to typically use the exact right amount of points or purchase additional miles if you don't have enough. I think it's simply an inefficient way, in my opinion, and you could end up wasting some miles or not getting the same value consistently, or they end up sitting there forever because you don't actually travel that much. That's why I prefer cash back, which is a specific percentage that remains the same and you get the cash for whatever you want to spend it on. Lastly, I also agree that credit cards are a little risky. Look, the vast majority of people, if you look at the statistics, clearly do not actually pay off their card every single month. But some do. And that was the basis of this question. So let's look at Dave's perspective now on paying off your credit card every month.
That is an absolute asinine, stupid statement. It is not true. You might have got your airline ticket for free, but everything else on the vacation was not free. So you're spending money and you're going on vacation when you should have been working because you're in debt. You're not supposed to be going on vacation when you're in debt.
They're in debt?
We follow everything you say. No, you don't. You don't go on vacation when you're in debt, and you don't go out to eat when you're in debt. You work and you work and you work and you clean your dadgum debt up. And that's the Ramsey plan. Now you can say you can go do your plan if you want, but don't say you're doing my plan when you're going on vacation.
All right, so they're not doing Dave's plan because they're in debt. So Dave said the caller is in debt, but the caller said that they pay off their card every single month. So Dave considers you in debt if you pay off your card in full every month. Yes, the credit card balance is debt. Yes, it's money that you owe to someone else. However, if you're paying it off in full every single month, I would not describe that as someone who is in debt. No interest is being charged. No additional expenses are being incurred beyond what you actually bought if you pay the card off in full every single month. In my opinion, this person is basically using this credit card as if it's a debit card. They're only buying things that are in their budget. They aren't spending any more than they have, and they pay it off every month. The money might as well be coming out of their checking account through their debit card based on the way that they're using this credit card. Yes, it's different because you do have some risk if you don't pay it off, but we already talked about that and how to minimize that risk. Look, this is the only way that I recommend using a credit card. Absolutely the only way. You should have an intentional spending plan, also called a budget, and an app to track it. When you spend money for groceries on your credit card, it should come out of your grocery category immediately as if you spent the cash, because you did. Then money is transferred from your checking account to pay off the credit card in full, because you actually have the money that you're spending in order to do that. You aren't borrowing more than you have to buy more than you can afford and then making payments over time. Do not do that. You will never increase your wealth that way. I actually prefer to pay my card off every week. I do my budget reconciliation once a week. It takes 15 to 30 minutes, and I pay the credit card off each time that I do that. This way, even if I miss a week or I'm out of town, I'm still paying the credit card off 2 to 3 times a month, which ensures that I never miss a payment and I never incur a late fee or interest. So let's talk about the arrogance Dave mentioned in that opening video that we watched, about beating the credit card companies at their own game. I think Dave changes the topic and the focus frequently in order to make his point, even if it doesn't specifically address the question asked. I think he did that here in this case as well. I don't think that the caller has a mindset that they are somehow beating the credit card company or pulling one over on Visa. I know for a fact that's not my mindset. Yes, credit card companies make a ton of money on late fees and interest. Sure, they provide these incentives knowing that they will make more off of most customers in interest and fees than they ever provide in rewards and benefits. But they don't need the interest and the fees to make money. They also make roughly 3% every time that I swipe my credit card. That fee is paid by the business that accepts the card, not me. If I get 2% cash back, they still make about 1% off of every transaction. And given the amount of transactions that occur across the world, that's a lot of money that they make from simply charging 1% more per transaction than they provide as cash back to me. I don't think that I'm beating the credit card companies. I don't think that I'm winning at their own game or pulling one over on them. I think that they've factored into their business model the person who pays the card off in full every month. It may not be their most lucrative customer, but it's still a customer that they make money on, and they're content with me using my card in that way. So I'm not arrogant in thinking that I've beat the system somehow. I'm using my credit card the way that many people do. Not the majority of people, maybe, but plenty of people use their credit card this way, and the credit card company is okay with that. Otherwise, they'd close my account. Now let's look at their argument against cash back rewards.
The whole 2% cash back, that one is one of my favorites. Because you know what 2% of $1,000 is?
$20.
$20 to spend $1,000, and that's not a great deal.
So let me get this straight. If you spend $10,000, you get $200.
Ding, ding, ding.
That'll make you rich. That's a formula for wealth building right there.
Yeah.
I agree with them. $20 isn't a ton of money, and $20 isn't going to make you rich. 2% is not an amazing return on your money, although it was definitely more than the banks were paying for a long time until recently. But I disagree with their argument that you're spending $1,000 in order to get 2% cash back. Remember, I said you should only spend what's already in your budget. So if I'm going to spend $1,000 anyway on something that is in my budget, why not get $20 back? Wasn't that the original question that the caller asked to begin with, which was never answered, by the way? Dave then does what Dave does, and he makes his condescending remarks about spending $1,000 to get 20, spending $10,000 to get 200 is dumb, and he throws in for more emphasis the question of whether or not the caller went to grade school. He completely twists the information in order to make the point that he wants to make. Now, let's use Dave's own logic against him for a minute and see how he fails to apply that logic consistently and fairly across these two scenarios. He says $200 isn't a significant amount of money, and therefore it's not worth using the credit card. Well, what about when they tell you that $200 or $100 is a significant amount of money?
I was going to go, well, the example
okay.
here,
I
you
see
can
what he
change
did.
the numbers on the example, but let's say this guy, Ben, who starts at 21. Bright
21.
kid, his parents went through FPU, he did this stuff, and he invests $2,400 a year. You got that?
Just $2,400.
$2,400 a year.
It's not a lot.
That's $200 a month.
Yeah.
$200 a month.
And he stops contributing at age 30. So from 21 to 30, $2,400 a year. The total amount he contributed was $21,600.
All right, they're going to compare what he contributes to someone else, but our point here is what can $200 a month do for you if you start investing and leave it invested for 30 years?
Now his buddy Joey, a little older, he started investing at age 30, and he invests $2,400 a year as well. And he contributes until he is 67. So instead of 9 years, he contributes for 37 years, and the total amount he contributes, $88,800. Now in your mind, Ken, without doing math, you're going, well, Joey's got to have more money.
Joey's ahead. Yeah.
He invested for a lot longer period of time.
So again, this particular video, they're comparing when you start investing early, and this example is great. It's an awesome example for another video another day. They're going to show you that the person who starts investing sooner, even though they stop sooner and they invest less money overall, they're going to end up with more money. So that's a great point. Start investing as soon as you possibly can. All right. But let's take a look at the person who did $200 a month for a few years and then stopped and left it invested for, I think in the example, 30 or 40 years. How much did they end up with?
You would be what's known as wrong. Because at age 67, Ben's investment, remember his $21,000 he put in, has grown to $2.1 million.
Wow, Ben's investment is $2.1 million. So I think he's saying that $200 a month can make you a millionaire. All right, let's jump into a video with Dave Ramsey though, see what he says about this same thing.
They actually put money into the investment. And so $100 a month,
$100 a month,
invested at 12% from age 25 to age 65 is on average going to come out at 12%, $1,176,000.
1.1, almost $1.2 million. So, all right, hang on. So in both of these videos, they show the impact of saving a little bit of money over a long period of time given a good rate of return. So which is it? Either $100 isn't a significant amount of money, or it is. Let's be consistent, guys. Let's say that you put everything on your credit card that you can, and you pay it off every single month in full and get 2% cash back. That could add up to $1,200 a year for many families. That's $100 a month. According to Dave, and more importantly, the math, because his math is correct, $100 a month over 40 years with a 12% rate of return is $1,176,000.
Absolutely incredible. So here's the thing. We did a study of millionaires. We studied 10,000 of them.
That's a great study, by the way.
10,167. Not a single one told us we became millionaires with our free vacation points.
The caller didn't say they were trying to become millionaires with free vacation points either. So again, Dave's twisting the question a little bit to make his point.
Because we ran all our utilities, our groceries, and everything else through a credit card, and then we went on vacation for free, and it didn't cost us anything, and that's how we built our wealth. Not one said that. Isn't that odd, Diane? So here's the thing. People that ask this question are people that think they're beating the system. Let me tell you how you beat the system. You don't play.
We already talked about this. I don't think the caller, I don't feel like I'm beating the system. I'm just using a card to get some cash back that I otherwise wouldn't get on stuff that I was going to buy anyway that's in my budget. So there's another way that Dave twists the information and the question. Of course, no one in Dave Ramsey's study said that this is how they got wealthy, because it isn't, but also because how you ask a question in those studies matters. Like I heard the guys over on the Money Guy show say that in their study of millionaires, they found that 99% of millionaires do use credit cards. But Dave would never ask that question in his study because it doesn't help prove his point. All right, look, I agree with Dave here. This isn't going to be your path to becoming a millionaire. It's money habits and beliefs that lead to wealth building, not credit card rewards. But purely mathematically speaking, technically it could be. In our example, we saw that credit card rewards actually can make you a millionaire. 1.176 million to be exact, given the right circumstances and discipline. That's very unlikely though. So let's change up the scenario just a little bit to be more realistic. Many families aren't able to spend $60,000 a year on a credit card. So let's say that you can realistically put $30,000 of your annual expenses on a credit card and you can get 2% cash back. You're also paying it off in full every single month. And you do this from age 35. Once you're older, making a little bit more, and you're spending a little bit more than you are in your 20s, and you do this until age 65. Now, that would be $50 a month for 30 years. And we'll assume a 12% rate of return like Dave did. The result is just under $175,000. That's a long way from 1.1 million. I know, but what's my point here? I don't directly take my cash back and invest it directly. However, that cash back does go into my budget. So if I don't have that cash, then I would save that much less each year because I would have to use the money that I'm investing on other budget needs because I would have that much less cash each year. So indirectly, yes, I'm investing that much more every year than I otherwise would be. Therefore, if it's $600 a year, $50 a month in credit card rewards over 30 years at Dave's rate of return of 12% interest, I could have $175,000 more at retirement than I otherwise would. And that's still a big number. Of course, if you miss a few payments and you incur interest and penalties, this doesn't work. But again, let me remind you of the initial question since Dave never answered it. The question was, what is the harm in using the credit card if you do pay it off every month? The truth is, there is no harm if you actually pay it off every month and if you don't spend more than you otherwise would. Those are the risks. But if you avoid them, there is no actual harm. So if you're disciplined enough to do this and you choose not to, you could be leaving about $175,000 on the table. So the question is, can you do this over 30 years? Is that reasonable? I've had a credit card for about 20 years. I've paid one late fee in 20 years. So that's probably about $25. I missed it by a day or two, so the interest was nothing. So yeah, I think I've come out ahead in cash back alone before even thinking about the impact of investing that cash back over 30 years. But here's where I give my disclaimer, and it's a very important one. Socrates said, know thyself. Do not, under any circumstances, use a credit card unless you have an intentional spending plan in place and you have an app to track your spending and you are actually using the app and you have a full emergency fund built up. If you aren't disciplined in this area, it's going to cost you significantly. And I believe that you know whether or not you're someone who should be using a credit card or not. Be honest with yourself. If you aren't there today, work on your intentional spending plan and tracking it and save up a full emergency fund. You can build this discipline. And once you do, then you will likely be able to wisely use a credit card without getting yourself into trouble. One last thing. I've disagreed with Dave quite a bit in this video, but I don't actually disagree with him sticking to his zero tolerance policy for credit cards on his own show. Millions of people watch this show, and if he says that there are some people who could pull this off, then every single person listening will think that they're the ones who can do it. But statistics show that there are far few people who can and will pay their cards off in full every month than there are people who won't. So Dave sticks to his zero tolerance policy, I believe, in order to protect those who will wrongly believe they are the exception to the statistics when they aren't. And I'm okay with that. Dave probably has done more than any other person alive to help people get out of debt and get their finances on track. I'm glad that his ministry exists. There is no Dave bashing here in this video. But I don't have millions of viewers, and we all know that there are people out there who are on top of their finances. And to you, I would say yes, there is risk. But there's no harm in this if you stay on top of it. But I give my disclaimer once again. Do not do this unless you have a track record of spending less than you make and sticking to your financial plan, and you have a full emergency fund in place. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others and check out one of our other videos. Thanks for watching.